What is up, everybody? Sean the D-Man here, and welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing great. Hope you guys are having yourselves a great weekend. We are here to talk about uh, DC Studios' upcoming Clayface, a movie that James Gunn announced a while back, like probably a little bit after he took over. um, and just by the looks of the trailer alone, it actually looks interesting. Now, I wasn't really going to do like a full like trailer reaction or anything like that, just because of the fact that it's only like a minute and a couple of seconds clip. It's not really worth me doing like a trailer reaction. We are going to look at it, but we're also going to talk about it as well because there are some things about it because just like the Penguin series, you had the entire series was Colin Farrell's Penguin and no Batman. Are we going to have the same situation as this? Because a lot of people don't really like these type of things, probably with the exception of being Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. Now, what I mean by that is, let's take a look at Sony's universe that they try to do without Spider-Man. You had three, um, no, you had two or three, you had three Venom films with Tom Hardy. You had Madam Web, Craven the Hunter, Morbius. You're doing these movies for like Spider-Man villains and maybe like side characters with no Spider-Man. It doesn't make any sense on why you would do that. Now, obviously, Sony is lending Spider-Man to um, Marvel, but still, it's just kind of like why are we doing this now? In the DC term of things, when it comes to Penguin, it actually worked. It was a very grounded, like mobsters type of story. You could probably get away with not having Batman there because you were always able to find an excuse. Oh, maybe Batman is busy with something else. But you knew at a certain point, you're just kind of like, okay, there's enough chaos going on in Gotham that Batman's eventually got to get involved in some way, shape, or form. Now, at the end of the Penguin series, we see the bat signal light up. Now, that's supposed to lead into the Batman Part Two. Um, but I think the Penguin series worked so well. It was like because the writing was good, the acting was good, like the coloring, the visuals, all of it was really really good, and people weren't as annoyed with the absence of Batman, even though there's a lot of stuff going on in the city within the show. Now, now we get Clayface, which is set to drop this October 23rd. Um, Very good Halloweenish type of movie. I don't know what I don't know the time or how long it is. It is. Um, I'm trying to see if there is a runtime. I don't think there's been a runtime announced yet. Let's see. And maybe there's been rumors, but all right. So the upcoming Clayface standalone horror movie set for release. Okay, so it's supposed to have a runtime of just under 2 hours. Okay, okay. So it's rated R. It's a horror thriller, and you know what? I, again, it looks from everything I saw with the 1 minute trailer the other day. It's piqued my interest. Now, again, you're gonna have to heavily explain on why there's not a Batman presence. Now, we don't even know where this fits into. Yes, there is a Clayface in Creature Commandos, but that is Carl. Uh, Carl. I think it's Carlos Basil. I think that's how you pronounce his name. This one is supposed to be Matt Hagen. Probably one of the better episodes of Batman the Animated Series is the one featuring Clayface, the two-parter episode. So we're going that route with the character of Matt Hagen. Again, we don't know where it fits because we don't know because it can't. I mean, this is where the problem of doing stuff like this is when it comes to DC and James Gunn. Because again, like I mentioned, you already got a Clayface in Creature Commandos. I would say the obvious choice would be to tie this Clayface in with the Matt Reeves universe. That will probably be the more idealistic place to do it. Because you don't even have a Batman right now. Like you've got so far with James Gunn being in charge of DC, you've got a Superman, Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Supergirl, and now Clayface. That's it. That's all your five right there. Um, so yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So one of the things we're gonna do is, like I mentioned, we're going to check out the 1 minute trailer again, and then we're just gonna like talk about it. So let me make sure I got all that. And all right, let's check this out because there's a lot of stuff here that I think looks really really good. Like just this opening scene here just looks, oh, it's gonna be crazy. Because there's not much talking in this. It's just some flashbacks and some music that goes over it. Actually, I don't know if the music is gonna get copyrighted or not. Do we just see him like getting injected and stuff like that? Um, yeah, it just looks good. See, yeah, I love that part right there. I love that little part right there where it just cover his face gets covered and everything. It's like clay. Um, I don't know if the music will get copyrighted, so I was just kind of like, I'll just leave it out for now. It's fine. So it looks like, so we can find it. Maybe it's back up. It's back up a little bit. It looks like, where did I see it? I was here. I'll just play it and do it this way. Okay, so that's him. Go back. That's oh, that is nuts. That is nuts. One thing I will say, like last year with Batman Cape Crusader, when that dropped on Amazon Prime, one of my favorite episodes was the one featuring Cyrus Gold, Clayface. I really, really, really liked that episode. And then I remember where I saw it. I'm trying to find a clip. There was like a little clip at the beginning here where it shows someone cutting his face. That's what I'm trying to find. It was like a real quick second. I think it might be up here. Oh, there it is. There it is. Back up. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like he's being held down. There's a guy right here, and plus the guy cutting his face. Um. So in Batman the animated series, um, Matt Hagen is in cahoots with Daggett. They tried to because there's the episode revolves around like Matt Hagen pretending to be Bruce Wayne to meet Lucius Fox to get some stuff, some information, or get something off of him. Um, I'm curious if they're going to go that route here or if they're going to go a different route with this. But yeah, that just looks brutal. And then there's another part. This here, I love this. I don't know if, how much we will see. Like, are we going to actually like see him transform his body into objects like this? Are we just going to see silhouettes just to give that impression of it? That'd be interesting to see in that regard. And then like towards here, I saw somebody on on Twitter talk about how they were like, notice how there's no water in the bathtub, and then somebody like commented below, um, is like, he is the bathtub, isn't he? I don't know. I don't know about that. It doesn't. It doesn't look like that would be the case. But this shot here, like this is that's a money shot right there. Um, and then it looks like probably experimenting with the clay, because we do see like some scientists looking at some data and some stuff like this here. Oh no, never mind. That's just a what you call it. Oh, I didn't notice that part. Go back. Oh, look at that. That's great. That's nice. So in this movie, you have um looks to be a very small looks to be a small cast with maybe just like some um side pieces, but Tom, what's that? Tom Harris, if I say his name correct, who's playing Matt Hagen here. Max Meningeli, Naomi Ackley, Eddie Marzen, and David Dinchik. So, if I said those names correct, I don't know if I did or not. But if you just look at like the vision, I would like to see more of what Gotham is in this movie. I don't want to say it might be a little too colorful to be like placed in Matt Reeves universe. Like I mean I could be wrong, obviously. Um, there's a shot of him running. Yeah, here. Let me back up. No, you probably could make it work. You probably could make it work. So I'd be curious though. I would be curious on how. Like, is this just going to be like another standalone movie like Joker was? It's like like a Elseworld movie. Is that just basically how it's going to be going forward? Um, let me see. Let's see. Let's see. I'm curious on. Let me. I want to look and see it something real quick. I wonder how long his video is. If it's not long, we'll watch it. If it is long, I probably won't watch it. Uh, yeah, we'll watch it. We got time. We got time. We could do this. So we're gonna check out a video by one of my favorite YouTubers, Boba Talks. I don't know if. Oh wait, why did I do that? That was stupid. Put that back. Go back here. Oh, there we go. Do that. Okay. All right. Let's check out his video here.
So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we are diving back into that incredible first look at the DCU Clayface movie. The full in-depth trailer breakdown, if you will, leading into what to expect from the plot, what we know so far about the plot, and how this prequel, yes, prequel, sets up Clayface in the future of the DCU, and how that even...
Now Boba he's I've watched him for years. I think I first came across his channel when when we were doing when he was doing the weekly Friday night reviews of Gotham that was premiering on Fox every Friday night. That's where I first came across him, and I've watched a lot of his videos since then.
Pertains to the questions surrounding the Creature Commandos Clayface that we saw at the very beginning of the DCU. Also, of course, some of the biggest things that I've just seen, people talking about when it comes to our first venture into the DCU's Gotham, Batman, all of that good stuff. It's gonna be a long one, so strap yourselves in, because I've got a lot to say, as always.
He's also somebody who usually has, I don't want to say sources. He probably has some sources, so he typically has a lot more knowledge or in-depth knowledge about some of the DC projects and maybe some of Marvel projects as well. He's mainly, most of the time I see him it's DC stuff, but so he may have some more insight on some of this.
Quickly here, a massive thank you to everyone who's been liking the videos recently, because I've been mentioning the ratio of likes to the views that I'm getting across videos, and we've gone up from what was 5.9% to 10% likes, as you're seeing from this screenshot as of when making this video, which is pretty damn hard to do, at least for my channel, but you guys are smashing it. So if you feel like going wild and helping me get this video to a 15% like ratio with whatever the views could be on this video, just thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more DCU videos like this. We've got a lot of DCU in the year ahead and beyond, so you're absolutely in the right place for that. But with that being said, I'm going to shut up. Let's just dive into this. So first up here, let's dive into the story they're adapting and what differences we could see from Batman the Animated Series, Feet of Clay, Parts 1 and 2. First though, just to refresh everyone on the official synopsis that DC Studios released alongside the first peek at Clayface. Clayface unravels one man's horrifying descent from rising Hollywood star to revenge-filled monster in a story that explores the loss of one's identity and humanity, corrosive love, and a dark underbelly of scientific ambition. So we know that Mike Flanagan wrote the story for Clayface, and the Clayface website also confirms that they did bring in another writer, Hossein Amini, to develop the screenplay. And as we always say here on the channel, I know I need to get a freaking t-shirt of this. Adaptations don't copy and paste from the material that they're influenced.
That is true. Just a good case in point would be Marvel. Marvel, like the Civil War, it doesn't like Captain America Civil War. It didn't copy directly from the actual Civil War run. It's just they pluck some things. Star Wars has done this too, where they have plucked things from books or canon, legends, whatever. They pluck things, so you typically don't get a page by page adaptation of whatever the source material is. Another good prime example of that is the upcoming HBO's Harry Potter: The Philosopher's Stone series, where they have gone and they have talked about being a faithful adaptation of the books to race swapping Snape. So obviously, yeah. So I'm not expecting this to be like some copy and paste of Feet of Clay or anything like that. I'm sure they are going to pull things from those two particular 2-part episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and then maybe some things that are from the comic runs that they could probably pull out as well.
Influenced by, and that is exactly
earlier I said Cyrus Gold was Clayface. I meant that was not who I meant to say. Cyrus Gold is Solomon Grundy. So I know I messed up right there.
Exactly what we're seeing here with even the brief looks that we get in this first teaser trailer. But it is all while incredibly intriguing to me to see what they are borrowing or adapting, if you will, from the animated series episodes. So I'm sure a lot of you know already, but in Feet of Clay, just a refresher, Matt Hagen, Clayface, was a famous movie actor who, after being disfigured in a car crash, he was approached by Roland Daggett of Daggett Industries, offering him a chance to test this new substance he had called Renew You, which ended up giving Matt Hagen the ability to fix his face. He could kind of like shift it around when applying that substance to kind of get back to where he was. But it was also a very addictive substance, which Roland Daggett held over his head. So in order for Matt Hagen to feed this newfound addiction to Renew You, Daggett actually made him impersonate people, because it didn't only fix his own face, it gave him that ability as well. And this even involved Bruce Wayne himself, which is where the
again, part of the episode is like Boba just mentioned, Daggett is holding the substance over Matt in order to get him to do what he wants. One of the things is to impersonate Bruce Wayne. So a lot of this is me stopping for commentary, that kind of stuff.
plot continues from there quite a bit. But before I get too ahead of myself here, we can already see some differences in this first teaser trailer. So one would be the slight difference in how famous Matt Hagen is. In the DCU's iteration of Matt Hagen, he is a rising star, and don't get me wrong, he's likely had this incredible momentum. He's already got fandom, but he's more likely in that position where he's on the very precipice of absolutely freaking blowing up and having the kind of prospect of this career that was spanning decades and decades. Whereas in the animated series, he's actually already an established famous actor, probably, has a bunch more movies under his belt, kind of a bit further down the road than this DCU version. And I think that this works just as well, by the way. Matt Hagen would have tasted his future as an actor, his success. He was probably loving life. Everything was going great for him. And then boom, disfigurement, right? Which
and so that's something too, because like in most cases, people in general will do almost whatever they can to get ahead, to rush up their, up the ladder. So it'd be interesting on if we see that with this version of Matt Hagen in Clayface, where maybe he had to do some shady stuff to rise up through the ranks of Hollywood, or so I'd be curious to see on how that plays out.
Introduces another change here.
Yeah.
So Matt Hagen in Feet of Clay in the Batman animated series was disfigured in a car accident. But here, very, very interestingly, we see him being attacked and disfigured by these ambiguous thugs who hold him down and carve up his face with a knife, which is just, I think that scene is going to be brutal in the movie, and they're not going to shy away with, the camera's probably going to be on it the whole time.
Yeah, because this is rated R, so I would definitely expect to see that.
Reports from Nexus Point News very early on, the antagonist of the film is set to be a crime boss who is supposedly another original character. And that role is likely being played by like who we saw behind the scenes. Some of you actually may remember this filming with his goons, and that was David Densig. So I would like to say from this angle that we're looking at, it kind of looks like him, and maybe that thug wearing this jewelry is one of his henchmen that we see in some of the footage as well. The bigger question here is, why is Matt Hagen being attacked by them and disfigured? Like, does he owe them money? Surely not. He's surely got some cash behind him now. He's a rising star. Is it possible, though, that they actually helped him with his career at one point, and they want to collect on that and what they feel is owed to them? And then since they aren't getting it, well, they might have taken the avenue that they're going to take his career away from him by taking away his face. Who knows, though? I think that's going to be a really interesting part of the plot, to compare it to Mike Flanagan saying that he was drawing from Feet of Clay. But I kind of get how, at the same time, they are making it different from the whole Roland Daggett
Yeah.
angle, just holding Renew over Matt Hagen's head by forcing him to shapeshift into other people, because then that would literally be walking the line of being too similar to the animated story, which is when, again, it gets into Bruce Wayne and Batman's involvement, which, don't worry, we're going to get into the whole question of that later on in this video, because I know a lot of people are still like, but what about Batman, man? What about Batman, right?
Yeah.
And they can still absolutely do a similar, story to Feet of Clay, but just showing his struggle with this Renew-esque substance play out in a bit of a different way, with introducing these other characters we're about to dive into that still drive forward an inevitable revenge plot. And another reason why I think they're going quite a different route to the animated series Roland Daggett supplied Renew thing, just to touch on that again, is because there is a bit more of a personal story that interweaves with what I believe is the tragedy aspect being explored, with how Matt...
Something I'm curious on if they will do in this movie is, will we see Matt Hagen like disguise himself as other people? Because we did see at the end of the trailer where like he just wipes his face and it's like just there's nothing there. So I do hope we do see that, to like, because it is so intriguing. You have a character like Clayface who has the ability to shape his face to be anybody's. The same way, think of it like the same way with Mystique, how she's able to impersonate anybody. Matt Hagen can basically do the same thing through his shape shifting abilities. Like, imagine Commissioner Gordon in Gotham trying to find somebody who, to be quite honest, you don't know at what he looks like. He can look like Matt Hagen right now, but 10 minutes later, he could be looking like Bruce Wayne. You just don't know. So that's an interesting thing. I'm curious on if we will see throughout the movie.
Hagen even comes across this opportunity to have this Renew substance in the film, right? And no, by the way, we don't know if it's actually called Renew in this version. It probably won't be, but I'm just going to call it that for the sake of convenience. So going more down that line, we do know that after Matt Hagen is disfigured by most likely David Densick's crime boss here, and as he sits in this bottomless pit of pain from what he's experienced, which, by the way, side note, I just want to say off the back of my reaction video, whatever Tom Reese-Harris is pulling from here to express that look under those bandages in the trailer is such a haunting shot, and I still can't quite get over it. There's something magnetic about that feeling that's being expressed there that I think captures the interest of anyone who watches that teaser. But anyway, I said that was a side note. Before I yap too much about that, we know this is actually where Naomi Ackie's character comes into play. And boy, I think this is going to be an interesting addition to the story. So back when I did my everything we know about Clayface video so far, or whatever it was called, Naomi Ackie's character was reported as Dr. Caitlyn Bates. But from the new promotional images for the movie, we have this Gotham Medical issue 25 talking about the new face of regenerative medicine, exclusive interview with Caitlyn Cole.
So that's where,
and I think it's safe to say that this is probably her character, right?
Yeah.
So instead of Roland Daggett in this movie, Matt Hagen will get his own substance, renewed substance, that will transform his face back to normal from Caitlyn, which is where we see those shots in the trailer displaying the Renew substance being injected into that initial knife wound we saw being inflicted into his cheek in this shot. We then see Caitlyn Cole looking at his cells under a microscope, and how...
Yeah, these were some of the shots that I was trying to find a couple of minutes ago when we were just going back through the trailer and picking stuff out. So that makes sense.
They appear to be interacting with this new substance. And at first, I thought this shot in the trailer could be Clayface melting into someone's drain or coming up through the drain at some point in the movie, which would be pretty terrifying and a way to get to someone, right? And it could be, who knows? But it could also just be a sample that Caitlyn is looking at through a microscope slide or something like that. Overall, there's all kinds of things that I can just say about this character, that are both pulled from reports, what this trailer shows, but also, of course, just a little dash of speculation here. And as I was briefly touching on earlier, I think this is also what is going to massively contribute to this being a horror thriller tragedy. Yes, obviously what Matt Hagen is going through in of itself is tragic, and seeing him go on to lose more of himself throughout the plot, not only identity-wise, but perhaps through, what he'll be willing to do in the name of revenge, and thus losing his humanity. Yes, we get all of that. That is going to be quite a tragic journey that will ultimately turn him into this villain that he might not even recognize when he looks at himself in the mirror, of course. But if you were to compound that with a doctor who is likely manipulating you to try out her experimental drug to further her own research, then, dude, like, Matt Hagen is going to be in for a very rough time in this movie. I think we all knew that, but there's layers to this, man. Now, I say all of this because, well, we also know from early reports that Dr. Caitlyn Bates early on is also a love interest for Matt Hagen. And from this shot here with them being on the couch, interlocking hands, sure, it's not...
So the question is she going to be like a scientist trying to further her own research, or is she going to use this experiment to save Matt? So that'll be the question right there.
Insanely romantic or anything, but it is most likely accurate to what we were hearing. You then couple that in with the synopsis, the whole line of, the story that explores the loss of one's identity and humanity, corrosive love, and the dark underbelly of scientific ambition. Yeah, I think Caitlyn is a woman who is very driven, ambitious, to maybe even obsessive levels, with her being this new face of regenerative medicine. And maybe, just maybe, what if her new substance, let's just say Renew You, isn't approved for human trials or this, that, and the other, but she could take advantage of a vulnerable Matt Hagen. And so, yeah, you can see where I'm kind of going with this. He takes something that isn't exactly guaranteed to give him the result he's looking for. And I think the idea of this corrosive love they might have could mean a couple of different things, and it's probably quite nuanced. Hagen, being vulnerable, finds someone who gives his life back, at least initially that is, before he starts learning about the melting face side effects. And who knows, right? Maybe Caitlyn has feelings for him that she didn't quite intend on having, because she's also reportedly engaged to the detective in this movie, played by Max Minghella, but she might be more in love with the idea of Hagen giving her exactly what it is that she wants to achieve. And that is where the whole, dark underbelly of scientific ambition comes into play. And side note here, I assume the role that Max Minghella's detective could play could be investigating the attack on Matt Hagen. But then again, he's obviously going to be linked with how Matt Hagen is involved with his fiance. So, that's all quite messy. Quite interested to see how his character plays into this. I always thought he was pretty great from what I've seen of him in The Handmaid's Tale. But back to the scientific ambition, you could go wild with theories here as well. Like, after, certain revelations may step into the light later in the plot, it would be kind of crazy if Hagen ended up killing her.
Yeah.
Or maybe her fiance ends up dying by his hand, but maybe it's unintentional, like as he's losing control of his powers. I know it sounds like I'm going off the deep end, but you can kind of see the territory of speculation I'm dabbling with there. I also think it would be kind of cool if we came to learn that Caitlyn's regenerative medicine research was funded by one of the mob bosses, which would result in having a similar vibe to the whole Roland Daggett aspect from the animated series episodes. And another side note here, I think it is kind of wild how medical treatments in the DCU's Gotham seem to have quite a way with creating metahumans. For example, in Creature Commandos, we saw flashbacks to how Dr. Phosphorus...
Now, I have not watched Creature Commandos. I'm not really interested in that show, so...
was created, right? And he worked on this nuclear chamber that would essentially eliminate cancer without harming the patient. But long story short, Rupert Thorne locked him inside, turned it on, and he became a literal radioactive metahuman. And here with Clayface, once again, in Gotham, we have Caitlyn Core, who is, also on this cutting edge of some medical regenerative goo. But yeah, I think just like in Feet of Clay, it's going to work for some time. Maybe Matt Hagen might even go to a movie premiere or something like that, where people are like, oh my God, how did you heal from your accident? You look amazing.
Yeah.
And then, boom. His face starts to droop. You get a running down the Gotham alleyway scene like this, and Renew just doesn't hold for long. So speaking of which, the more we see of how Matt Hagen isn't getting what he thought he would with this Renew substance Caitlyn gives him, with various shots in the trailer, we see exactly this kind of turmoil he's experiencing. To this shot of him being on a plane and his face starts melting, so he rushes to the plane toilet. That makes me wonder if he's on his way back to Hollywood, maybe, after initially having the treatment, but then he has to rush back to Gotham, not to mention how the mob bosses could be getting away with what they've done to him in the plot. And I say that because I do think at first there is some kind of court scene that happens, and we've seen behind the scenes filming for that where he's wearing that mask we see featured in this first look that he wears while his injuries are healing and all of that. And we see the detective there, the mob bosses, and Matt Hagen himself. But, again, what if they're getting away, or what if there's not enough evidence? And at a certain point, after enduring so much, at what point does it become a volatile cocktail of anger and revenge? This is where that revenge plot comes in, and we do get some shots in the trailer which looks like Matt Hagen is going to be pushed over the edge. I think shots like this, by the way, seeing Eddie Marsan's character walking down this Gotham street could very well be Clayface himself, getting access to places that could get him closer, could very well end up in scenes like this, with this lady here screaming at something horrific happening. Another example of this could be this shot here, where we see Caitlyn Core putting her fingers in this guy's mouth as though she's trying to stretch it or put it back into place, while he seems to be in the middle of some discomfort, to say the least. Now, that very discomfort could be Matt Hagen struggling to morph his face back into his own, or on the flip side, this could be him in the first place sculpting it.
Okay, so it at least does sound like we're going to get something like that. So that's good. That's good.
To look like someone else because he's about to go somewhere, to go undercover, to get to whoever he wants to get to, or something like that. And if anything, I think it's pretty fascinating to see how Caitlyn is still a part of whatever's going on here. It's like how we were getting into those theories earlier. Like for Matt Hagen, it might appear like she's helping him navigate this, but for her, she might just love examining him like a lab rat, and he's completely unaware that she's more fascinated to see what her substance is doing to him, how his body is reacting to it, how his face is changing into this, rather than just really caring about him for him. It's more what is happening to him. Side note here, though, it does look like in this shot we see Caitlyn pushing Matt Hagen out of a window, so I'm not sure why that is, but let's just say that he's going to land like a little blob on the floor, and this could lead to him getting revenge against her as well. You could argue, in addition to all the theories we've been talking about here, he confronts her and something happens and she just pushes him, and it makes people think that Matt Hagen is dead, like in Feet of
That or like maybe he finds out she had a hand in this and to what happened to him as well. Yeah.
Clay, but that's far from the truth. Also in this shot, we get to see Matt Hagen holding a knife to possibly the mob boss himself, about to perhaps inflict the same damage that he had put onto him. Then, of course, we get that silhouette of the mud monster forming, or at least partially a very recognizable part of him, with Clayface's mace forming as he strikes whoever this person is. It would be pretty crazy if there was another silhouette that appears on that wall with two pointy ears in a scene like this towards the very end of the movie, if you know what I mean. Now, we've also had some more updates on Clayface from Gunn, and I'm seeing a lot of people talking about this stuff. So first of all, the one that I am seeing talked about quite a bit is learning that this is a prequel in the DCU. So James Gunn said to a fan asking if it's set before or after Superman, before. It's the first DCU film out of chronological order. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you've been watching this channel for quite a while and my previous coverage of Clayface, you'll know that to me, this isn't remotely news, albeit I admit that we were assuming that this was the case. Now, the reason for that also ties into the Clayface we see in Creature Commandos. And this is the other thing a lot of people are talking about, and I'm seeing them say, no, the one in Creature Commandos is Basil Karlo. It's not this. No, it's not that. That kind of thing. Now, shout out to Buster Beyond on Twitter, who shared with me that James Gunn liked his post, literally saying, so I'm guessing it's highly likely this is the same Clayface from Creature Commandos.
Interesting.
James Gunn liked. This was literally in the past 24 hours. And I mean, that is as good as saying yes without saying literally yes in the reply, if you ask me.
Now, okay, so then that just basically means this is going to be set into James Gunn's DC universe, with Supergirl, Superman, Creature Commandos, Batman Brave and the Bold, whenever that comes out. So this is just, I guess you could say that's basically confirmation that this is going to be in that universe, which is I don't know. I don't know.
Now, why is this such a hard thing for people to buy in the first place? I mean, I don't think it really should be, but as I keep saying, I kind of get why it is. But I think, honestly, it's just down to a couple of things. First of all, just how animated things are a lot more animated, and I don't know how else to put that. The very medium it is in, even compared to a live action thing in the same universe, still usually differs a little bit there. So when comparing them, it feels a bit displaced, to say the least, and not so much in line with one another at times. A good example of this would be Rick Flag Sr. in live action compared to even Frank Grillo voicing his lines in Creature Commandos. They are quite a bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of Matt Hagen years and years and years later after this movie, who is just a fairly young dude, where it's not so outrageous to imagine him gaming, most likely still being on the run from whatever atrocities get committed in his own movie in the past. Yeah, like I can buy that. Maybe the college stuff is a little bit more, does he really turn into that kind of creepy kind of guy? So that's like the whole animation translating over to live action thing. But also what I think it mostly comes down to, if we want to be pedantic over every freaking detail, is that Gunn wrote Creature Commandos before the DCU was even cooked up as a thing. So basically, even if the DCU wasn't a thing, this is one way to put it, and was never planned, and he and Safran never came in as co-CEOs, he was going to release this in the DCEU kind of thing, right? It's just that, he got offered co-CEO, they built up a universe, they planned it, but this was already in the oven, baking, and he put it out there as kind of like, you may as well low-key call it the first DCU project, but, it's more of a aperitif, as he put it, way early on. And Superman was the first proper DCU project, if you really want to think about projects that were specifically sculpted under the tenure of him as co-CEO as Safran, and acknowledging this is a whole new universe. So if it isn't obvious enough already along the line from the initial perception of Clayface, some things might subtly change a little bit. Clayface being pretty creepy, hitting on people in that college class, I don't know if that kind of version of Clayface really marries up to the Tom Reese Harry's Matt Hagen we're going to see in this movie.
Yeah.
Who knows, though, after being on the run and losing kind of all sense of himself and God knows what, he's willing to be like that and willing to work with Princess Alana Rostovic, getting him probably way over his head, because I doubt that Matt Hagen realized he was helping out Alana Rostovic with a plan for world domination. Do you see what I mean? But long story short, in my opinion, plus with guns like that, they are the same bloody Clayface.
Okay.
Now, with Gunn also talking about how Clayface is set before Superman, well, I've always felt like a good place to put Clayface would be the early to mid 2010s. So this is where, yes, the whole bloody Batman thing comes into this. So while there is literally no guarantee for Batman in this movie, one thing I've always said again and again, just in case they ever want to remotely, like softly introduce the Batman in the DCU before his own debut movie, The Brave and the Bold, which could be 2028, 2029 kind of vibes, well, you could do that in this film. So given that this is a prequel, This is quite a few years before we see Matt Hagen as Clayface in Creature Commandos in that house fighting Rick Flag Sr. Let's just hypothetically say it was in 2013, 2014. And let's
Yep.
just say, if you want to talk Batman stuff here, if they were to put an Easter egg in the film, this could be done so well in my mind, where you don't even have to shove it in our faces, but you could have on the news that Bruce Wayne returns to Gotham. And if you think about it that way, if Bruce Wayne returns to Gotham, well, that would make Batman, give or take, 10 years into his Batman vigilante career by the time Superman and Man of Tomorrow are taking place, which would mean he's still in his prime. You could have him go
Yeah.
from 25 to 35, 36, 37, still very much so in his prime. You would have had a couple of Robins and whatnot by then. You can play around with the chronology of how you want to do Robins. You've heard me talk about that enough. But do you see the vision? Like, you could genuinely have Clayface, which is a prequel in the DCU, set in 2013, 2014, 10-ish years before Superman. Batman at that point will have a Bat family around him, but at 2013, 2014, hey, I think it'd be pretty sick if, like,
Yeah. I mean, that would be interesting. I don't want to say that's probably the only way you could do it. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think more on that.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's just a simple news report. How sick would it be, though, if when you get that silhouette shot, something like this towards the end of the movie, where unfortunately at this point Matt Hagen has lost so much of himself, he is full on blob monster mode. You see the bat signal light up in the sky for the first time, and like, he doesn't quite know what that is yet because the Batman hasn't really been around until that very day. I don't know. You can obviously play with that idea and shift it around in all kinds of ways. I think that would be a really cool way to not also take away from the Clayface movie being about Clayface, because you don't want to steal the thunder. That's why I don't think you're going to get literally Batman in the alleyway being like, "What's up, Matt?" Yeah, right. I'm going to suck you up in my Clayface extracting gun. No, but you can still do really cool things there. We also have to, talk about these looks at DCU Gotham. And sure, we don't get a bunch of looks, but the shots that we do get with the grading over these scenes makes me very, very happy to see. However, I get that people look at the daytime shot of Gotham that we get to see and think that it just, hey, I've seen plenty of people say, oh, it just looks like a city. This is, well, it kind of is a city, but I do kind of get where they're coming from. Yeah. My counter to that, just to be fair to it, is that even in Matt Reeves' Gotham, in daytime shots from, let's say, the Penguin or even the Batman movie itself, Gotham can just sometimes lose its charm a bit in the daytime setting when you specifically compare it to a gorgeous nighttime shot in the same project. I hope whatever I'm showing on screen kind of gets my point across there. Now,
I mean, there's something like mysterious and mystique about Gotham at night compared to just seeing it during the daytime. You're just kind of like, it just looks like a normal regular city, but at night it takes a life of its own.
Said that, no, that's not me saying that you can't have a very Gotham looking gothic Gotham in the daytime. And on that note, I just think a lot of us were hoping that in a very fantastical DCU there'd almost be this comic panel-esque kind of filter or video game moodiness at all times over their cities, day or night. Or even Metropolis in the daytime would be this, or have this very fantastical yellow sunlight hue over everything at any given moment. But it seems that they're not really doing that. And I do get kind of both sides. And I think Gotham will come to life way, way, way more in the nighttime shots. But also, to be fair, we do have to see a lot more of the city that is one frame. And even that one frame isn't bad. I think the more we'll see from the nightlife, seeing the buildings from the street level, that's where I think people will gel with it more, just like those very shots in the trailer of seeing him run through the alleyway or whatever it may be. But for now, people will just feel a bit apprehensive when seeing a city in the daytime like this. I think I've done enough yapping about the whole Clayface trailer in general. So if you're still here, my God, thank you for watching this long and helping out with the algorithm.
So I know that was a little bit long for this video than what I intended it to be, but that's okay. But yeah, overall, I think I am still pretty much excited to see it. What when it was first announced, it definitely was a project that I had my eye on. And I was like, okay, this seems quite interesting because I do love Clayface as a Batman villain. Um, whether it is the Batman the animated series version or even the Batman animated series version that was on the WB on Saturday mornings and stuff like that, or even Clayface in the Arkham games. And so I think this probably will be fun, like a fun. I mean, well, it's a horror thriller, but I love horror thriller, so it's really right up my alley. So, I definitely want to see more. Definitely see what they play around with this movie for sure. But guys, that is basically it. If you are new to the channel, you can find me obviously here on the Nerd Talk channel. You can find me on the gaming channel, Kick, Twitch, Rumble, the Nerd Talk podcast on Spotify. All that you can find down in the description below. But other than that, hit that like and subscribe, comment below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Y'all have a good one.